Boys, girls, and non-binary pals. This is a elf for you, and I'm sorry I went missing for like 2 years, but I got permission from AshGopal. I hope I said that correctly. To Pathic beating down the hatches, and it does have graphic descriptions of violence and non-con. It is a gender-bend Percy Jackson fic where and the relationship is Apollo x Percy Jackson and Achilles x Patroclus. It's a time travel fic, so let's get into it. Summary: Cordelia Jackson had been warned ever since she had been thrust into this infernal world behind the mist. She had heard all the stories of lawless lands and tyrannical kings, of epic wars and legendary heroes, of ruthless monsters and merciless gods. The stories of how things used to be, and now she finds herself in the thick of it, with nobody to rely on but herself. May the gods blessing be with you, for you shall certainly need it. Prologue. Bad impressions. Odysseus sighed. Is this really necessary? The man he was following barely glanced back. You agreed to the conditions. Odysseus grimaced. Well, yes, I did. He wasn't expecting to have to venture through a cesspit of crime and depravity to finally hold a meeting. The man scoffed. And so the world of king holds so little. The man scoffed, and the word of king holds so little weight. Color me unsurprised. Odysseus shut his mouth and tried to ignore the eyes that trailed after them as they made their way through the sketchy alleyways. Eventually, after taking too many twists and turns that even Odysseus' prodigious memory couldn't make heads or tails of, they ventured out of the dark alleyway and stopped onto a small, secluded port. Docked with thick ropes was a singular ship. Odysseus couldn't help but stare. He had heard of the infamous ship and her mistress, of course, but it did nothing to prepare him for actually seeing it in person. The black ship was its magnificent pitch sails glistened under Artemis's cool light. The model of the ship was peculiar, something Odysseus had never seen before. The ship was taller than any other ship he had been on, and the sequence of oars that usually line the sides of such a vessel was missing. The eyes of the forbidden pitch-black Pegasus forehead seemed to follow them as they made their way through to the ship's as they made their way up to the ship and boarded. The man led him to the captain's quarters and held the door open for him. Odysseus nodded at him and stepped through. When his foot had barely crossed the threshold, the door slammed behind him. Well, he supposed that he couldn't expect proper manners with this sort of company. Odysseus tried to observe the room, simply functional, with a large bed with rumpled sheets and a handful of personal belongings, and finally his eyes landed on her. His breath caught. Odysseus had only one true love, his darling Penelope. She was the light of his life, and the only one he would ever touch. She would always be the most beautiful woman in the world to him, but that did not stop him from being stunned speechless. Seated in front of him was an astonishingly gorgeous woman. She wasn't traditionally beautiful in the classic Greek way, with girlish features and generous curves, nor in the Minoan way, with a stout, hardy build. No, this woman was taller than was fashionable, with a leanness that that belied the strength in her honed muscles. Her hair was black as her ship, wavy from the salt spray, and was cut startlingly short to end just above her collarbones. She wore curious clothes, with strange trousers adorning her crossed legs, and some sort of long, undefinable leather coat that fell to her knees. A strange hat rested on her head, the likes of which he had never seen before. The brim almost covered her peculiar black ringed eyes, probably to protect from the sun and elements out on the open seas. Odysseus contemplated. The woman's features were sharp, with high cheekbones, hollow cheeks, and a chiseled jawline, but rather than combined effect being masculine, one couldn't mistake her for being anything other than a woman. But it was her eyes that truly revealed what he was dealing with, standing out all the more from the black smears around them. Her cat-like green eyes shone with uncontainable divinity, almost glowing in the dark of the night. She looked like a nymph, or perhaps a sorceress, or, in this case, like a goddess. Odysseus shook himself out of his stupor. He lowered his head respectfully. "You have my thanks for taking the time to meet with me, your grace." The woman's full red lips burst in displeasure. "Don't call me that." Odysseus frowned. "I beg your pardon, and would you perhaps prefer I address you as your title, my queen?" She scowled, and she uncrossed her legs and stood. He was right. She really was unfashionably tall, perhaps even as tall as Eurylochus was. Fascinating. "Well," Odysseus mused, "not that I mind her any less intimidating. Not that it made her any less intimidating and intimidatingly beautiful. No, call me Cordelia." Odysseus analyzed her. Very well, Cordelia." She began to pace. "And you can stop with the formal bullshit. I'm not a boot-licking politician you need to schmooze. Just get to the point. I got shit to do." Odysseus's eyes widened at the informality, but he caught himself. "All right, then, I have a request." Cordelia continued pacing, barely sparing him a glance. Her fingers drummed a beat only she could hear on her thigh. "Yeah, no shit, that's the only reason a king like you would make the trip all the way over here to visit me. So tell me, if I were hero of the wise one, what would you want from me?" "I want you to lead us to Troy." Cordelia froze, all movement coming to a complete halt. She slowly turned to him. "What did you just say?" Odysseus exhaled. "I'm sure you heard by now, but there has been a major incident. Menelaus' wife, Helen, has been abducted, and now they both reside in Troy. As was the agreement, every one of Helen's former suitors will set sail to reclaim her and return her to her lawful husband and kill the one who took her from him." Cordelia stared at him. "Yes, I understand that much, but I don't see what this has to do with me. Are you under the impression that I was one of her suitors or something?" "Ha, of course not. To be honest, this does have nothing to do with you." At first glance, Odysseus ran her with his penetrating eyes, similar to his patron goddess. "This does not affect you directly, but this moral war will soon be the parallel to a godly war, won't it, Pirate Queen?" "Pirate Queen." Odysseus smirked brightly. "After all, wouldn't you know with your concrete..." Odysseus smirked bitterly. "After all, wouldn't you know with your connection to the gods?" Cordelia's pretty features morphed into a snarl, and her sea-green eyes showed even more brightly. Odysseus felt a sharp tang of godly power fill the cabin. "What do you think you know about me, you son of a bitch?" Odysseus maintained his composure. "It is quite obvious that you are the daughter of the Brine One, Brine Lord. Her eyes flashed. So? Did she think that was all? Who did she think he was? And of course, there is the matter of your lover. Cordelia's eyes narrowed menacingly. Again, I repeat, so? That was enough for now. Even if he was a king, he was in a foreign land and a powerful being's territory. Best not to antagonize her too much, lest he fall into the brine himself. Odysseus lifted his arms placatingly. Peace, my queen. Again, I am only answering your questions. Please lead us to Troy. We desperately need your help. Cordelia stared at him for a few more moments before the weight of her power receded. She sighed, gracelessly flopping back onto her seat and kicked the chair across from him. Sit, let's talk. Odysseus smiled and sat.